All right, so we are recording, so welcome back. So we missed everybody last week with the storm. Hopefully everybody stayed safe, healthy over here. Obviously all our thoughts and prayers to everybody on the West Coast that had to go through so much. And I know there's a lot of our students and such that are over there. So hopefully they're able to get through the recovery quickly and get things back to a new normal for them. So anyways, like I said, we weren't here last week. Thankfully, we were able to reschedule ABT to come later on in the semester so that we don't miss out on having the company. But tonight we have our general meeting. And so hey, we have our general meeting. So as we have before, we got the company info sessions and the general meetings. And so tonight is our MISA Tech Talk. So for those of you that have been with us for a while, we've had a couple different speakers come in and talk just basically about what their current role is, what they do, and what are just really some behind the scenes info about their role and kind of what they're working on, really just to kind of show you those pieces. So we have one of our amazing, not only FAU MIS alums, but also one of our MISA officers. We say former because he's not currently an officer, but they're still like, once you're an officer at MISA, you're like unofficially always an officer. So he was both our communications officer, and then for a little bit just like kind of does everything, whatever's needed officer setup. And then, as you know, he works at OIT, but he also worked in a variety of different roles there as well. So we'll talk a little bit about kind of his story in that place. So without any further ado, I'll go ahead and pass it off to our guest speaker. So can we give a nice warm MISA welcome for Zack Phillips from
Are you watching it on the Zoom meeting right now? I just want to make sure it's like showing. Yeah. No, that's just showing. Okay. There we go.
Nice.
And then you can see all of them.
Yeah, they can't see that.
Okay, they can see that. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. You can find that one. Yeah. Nice.
All right, everyone. My name is Zach, or Zachary Phillips, but no one calls me Zach, or no one calls me Zachary. I work at FAU OIT. That's Office of Information Technology, like the local central IT of FAU. And basically, that is kind of like the brain as far as like other IT departments in the university. There's a few IT departments that are in College of Business, such as executive education, as well as there's like a centralized one as well, just in the building down there, I think. Do you remember where the thing is? The IT in here?
Oh, for College of Business?
Yeah.
So right here.
It's a fourth floor. It's right over there. Yeah, it's in the fourth floor here. And then there's a few others spread out across the university. So let me next slide. So I started here at FAU as a student. I actually started not in MIS. I started in computer science. That quickly ended because I was like, I'm not doing all this math. And that's like the reality of it. Like and there was a lot of coding into it. And when you're like just starting out in school, you're like, I have no idea what I want to do, but I just know I liked computers growing up and I always tinkered with them. I was the one in the house, as probably most of some of you are, that your mom or dad would be like, hey, my computer's working. And you're like, it's just this, mom, and stuff like stupid stuff like that, or smaller stuff that we think is stupid. But yeah, so I moved over to MIS because I wanted the computer side, but I didn't want to just do a whole computer science degree in terms of just coding and stuff, because I wasn't sure, but I'll get in more into coding and stuff further down the presentation. So yeah, that's kind of why I switched majors. And also, when I started out and I was looking at the curriculum of MIS, I like the business aspect for my own learning, not necessarily because I wanted to do a business job, but I realized very quickly that you need to understand business if you're going to work in a business that has the IT in it, because there's a lot of budgeting that goes with your IT as far as like projects and deadlines and stuff like that. So as Dr. Sweet was saying, in MISA, I joined 2018 sparingly. I showed up to one meeting and then I was like, I'm so excited, I'm ready to go. And then I never came back for that one semester. And then I followed it up after the fall and I was like, all right, I should probably just like get into this because something I'm sure like you've been told a lot is networking, not in terms of like networking, like tech, like networking, talking with people is huge in your career. Like the amount of people that I've met just through this organization has literally been the catalyst for a lot of things that I've done. So, and I was also the communications officer, like you said. So some of the internships that I've done, along with, I'll start with the jobs first. So, because I did my internships after my first IT job. My first IT job was actually in OIT at the help desk. And I was a part-timer. In 2018, or no, in fall of 2017, I was in Dr. Moran Basaratman. I don't know if any of you had him for ISM 2000. You teach him at ISM 2000 still? Yeah. So it was that class if you took it with Dr. Sweet. He was a CTO when I was a student. And he was like, hey, give me your resume. And I was like, oh, you want to take it over to like, take a look, like help me. And he's like, no, I'm gonna get you a job. And I was like, all right. So he got me into OIT and a help desk position. And that was the true catalyst in terms of like beginning my IT career. And so I did some help desk work from 2018 to 2020 at OIT. And in between that time, I had the opportunity of taking the summer off and doing an internship. And through actually MISA, a company called Office Depot came here and they were offering internships and IT internships, operations, whatever else they were offering. And they came up here, did a presentation just like this. And with a few actually other MISA members that are not here right now, but like Al Campbell, if you ever heard him, and a few others, we all did that internship. And that was huge in terms of networking, not only, but understanding what goes into the business aspect of IT. What I did there was not help desk work. It was quality assurance engineering, if you've ever heard of this. So basically there's two parts to what I was doing. You know, like you go to an Office Depot store and they have the cash registers. So the IT part of that in terms of software that they use for the cash registers has to be tested. And let's say they want to push out a new feature. We do these things called regression testing. So part of it was manual testing. So actually testing the cashiers in like a little lab, if you will, like a bootstrap lab with like databases and servers all in this like tight room. And then that was very cool. And you get to just kind of meet everybody and talk and see their journeys and stuff like that. And the other part of that job was doing automation testing. So we, so you know those coding classes that you do in this degree actually helped at this internship. So have you guys taken Java yet? Yeah. Almost. Toledo. But the automation testing that I was doing for quality assurance was for the main Office Depot website. So like just www.officedepot.com. And what went into that was I would write a script in Java. It's not like I just knew what to do. Don't get me wrong. Like I was like, oh my God, I have to do this. So someone was there to help like guide you and kind of help you and say like, hey, look at this documentation. Tell me what you can get out of it, and then we'll go from there. So I did that, and it was basically just automating buying some items on their website, as well as like making sure the prices are correct. Like let's say school is happening soon, and making sure like a banner is there when they go to a certain page on the website and stuff like that. But a lot of it was you creating a script, so that way you would only be running it or testing it a couple times, and then it would just be running constantly. So that way all the tests come back to whoever is the manager or whatever, and they're seeing that it's good, like all the tests are good and stuff like that. And then after that, I went back to OIT help desk and did more part-time work. And then eventually I went to my second job. I guess I could go ahead. Nah, we'll go back one more. In 2020 is when I graduated in spring, and then the pandemic hit. It was literally like the month after the pandemic I graduated, and I was like, oh my God, how am I gonna find a job? Because you're just graduating, and luckily IT is becoming more remote, but it was very like this like overwhelming sense of, you think like when you're in school, like how am I gonna get a job? I don't know too much, but like when the pandemic hit, it was just like everybody was in the same boat. Luckily, my first full-time job hit because someone ended up leaving at OIT help desk, and I was, hi, please, and I got the full-time job there, and I was able to be exposed to a few different departments. I did a little bit of like PowerShell scripting because I was interested in some of like the sysadmin stuff that they were doing over there. So like think servers, Windows servers. If you've ever heard of Active Directory, and just a few other things that you may have heard in terms of like system administrator work and stuff like that. But I was just dipping my toes in, like not really doing it, if you will. And then I got an opportunity to go to a company that's actually up in Palm Beach Gardens called Dicom. And it was for a level 2 support / analyst. So less on the support side and more on the analyst side, because that's what they kind of hired me for, is to help build a team that's dedicated to what would be called app support. And what that means is you're kind of working with developers to figure out what's wrong and why there's bugs in their software. And so the reason why I was bringing up the analyst part and the app support part is because my internship with Office Depot helped out a lot, because I knew the principles and the basics of like quality assurance testing, and that was going to be needed in this job, and they saw that. So just kind of like dipping your toes in different things along the way, and taking an internship that you may not think that you may want in terms of like IT. Like let's say like you're like, okay, I know I want to be this. It's okay to like, if an opportunity comes your way, you're like, okay, let me try this out, because this is the time to like really venture out and see what's going on. I see 7 chats. Is that? Okay, I was just making sure. I was like,
Oh, yeah.
okay, cool. That's what I thought.
They're only here for their points.
Exactly. I know the game. So yeah, and that was on a contract actually. That wasn't, so it was full time, but there was like a contract to hire. So they did like a 6 months, and you worked with like a recruiter, and then they would hire you on full time. So within that time, I realized what I was doing over there was not what I wanted to do. So I stuck it out, and luckily they have like a little path to go over to different departments within the company. But then again, another company, FAU, reached out to me and offered to interview for me, or for the position I'm in now, which is a what's called a systems analyst programmer. So basically what that means is I am kind of like a system administrator, but also I am a programmer. So I'm kind of both. And and like in my mind, I'm thinking as I'm saying that, I'm like, that sucks. But it doesn't suck. I was just thinking about how much I have to do. So as far as the system administrator part, I handle a good amount of Linux servers as well as Windows servers that all work towards making FAU single sign-on. So FAU single sign-on may look just very simple to you guys in terms of just when you sign in, and that's good. That means I'm doing a good job because it signs you in. But yeah, so let's see if I next. Yeah. So like I said, Linux servers. So the main two are we have some Linux servers that are in the cloud. And basically those are the two workhorses in terms of like tackling all the load. So like when you guys sign in for registration, I gotta be watching this thing like a hawk, because if it goes down and you guys are like trying to register, it's gonna come to me. So I gotta make sure my servers are up to par in terms of all the latest security patches, the latest updates in terms of making sure it has enough storage and the logs aren't taking up too much room, and just whatever may be coming at me all at once when you hear the CIO or your boss talking and saying like, "Hey, is this good? Is this good?" In terms of like the load that's about to come. So it's just a lot, and I'll show you a couple of dashboards and what a log might look like when you log into a FAU single sign-on. So also, I kind of wanted to explain what kind of goes into single sign-on as like at FAU at least. So there's this acronym called SAML or SAML 2.0, and it's basically a protocol. And so with this protocol at FAU, it sends an assertion over. So like think of your when you put something in the mail, the mailman does not open your mail, right? They deliver, hopefully, that's a security problem. They take your mail and deliver it to the next person. The person whose name is on that piece of mail is the one that gets to open it in a perfect world, right? I'm just like giving a very high level of what and how it works. So you sign in, let's say you're signing into Canvas. I'm the mailman, I'm taking your information over to Canvas, and Canvas is like, hey, these keys match. I can actually open this mail. My name is on the envelope. So Canvas opens it, sees it's you, and says, all right, cool, Zach, you're good to sign in. And that's kind of like a very, very, very high level of if you can kind of visualize what's happening. So at the start, when I'm working with, like, let's say Canvas, I want to set them up for single sign-on. We have what's called metadata, and it's basically just a bunch of blabber information saying who we are, some certificates, and all that kind of stuff. You can actually go to it. Let me see, is the screen sharing just the yeah. Yeah.
At the bottom.
So I can actually show you what I'm talking about rather, and so you can visualize it. So if someone wanted to come here and say like, hey, I wanted to set up a new service, this is the metadata I'm talking about. So it's all this information that may make no sense to you guys. But that's not the point. The point is like, this is what like, let's say Canvas will take from us, and they'll also give us something similar as far as their setup. And these certificates you see right here go into a play when they get to open up the piece of mail when we send it to them. Go back to the, yeah. And then we set them up, test a little bit. If there's issues, I'll work them out and see, I'm checking the logs. You'll see a snippet of the log in the next slide or two. And it's pretty intimidating when you look at a bunch of logs, especially when you don't know what you're looking for. But that just comes with time. And also, when you're signing in the envelope, it's called an assertion, at least for SAML 2. There's attributes, so like your Z number, your first, last name, email, and whatever else we need to send to them so that way they can identify you or get certain information from you. So like Canvas might need your email, first, last name, and probably your Z number, whatever it may be. And once they have that data, they'll sign you in. But it's very important that we encrypt what's being sent, as well as have signing on it as well. So signing is like saying, hey, this is mine. And they Canvas is like, okay, I see you signed it, and it's also encrypted. We'll take whatever you're sending us. So that way there's a safe transaction there. And it's also very important to understand what authentication is versus authorization. FAU single sign-on is not authorization, it's authentication. So we're authenticating you. The authorization part is on the app side. So if they see my email and they see that I've authenticated, they can authorize me to actually hit the log, go into the page. I don't know if you've ever gone to a website at FAU. I'm just stumbling around. You sign in and you're like, oh, let me sign in. But it says like, hey, you're not authorized. That's that coming into play. It'll say like 403 forbidden or something, whatever the error code may be. And there's also monitoring that goes into my job. So something that I have that I'm currently setting up is some Splunk dashboards. Splunk is a very, very important tool, especially in security, that people like me will send in logs to the security team, and they'll take in and create dashboards, and so that we can see line by line and very nice and beautiful, however they want to create it in this application called Splunk. And it just kind of like, and I'll show you the next slide. It'll show you like a snippet of a log, and you're like, oh, I understand why I would want to see that in a nice, beautiful format. And then we also have, like I was saying before, how I have servers in the cloud. Azure, I have Azure dashboards. And this is extremely useful, especially when there's high load times. So like registration, I can see how many requests are coming in per hour and then stuff like that. I can see the throughput. I can see a few other different attributes, but I'll show you as well. So this is kind of a snippet. So this top one shows you the amount of requests that we get in a day. On a general day, around almost 1 million requests come in. So requests, I mean, you signing in, someone signing into something. Now think about how many times you sign in, just you. Now multiply that by thousands of people, and also people from other universities signing into our websites, because across university is very common as well. And this is a sum of failed requests. So this could be, it's very wide range. It's not very particular. It's like, you have a question?
Is the deal like mobile?
No.
Is that related to?
No. So like, remember how I said like authentication? So that is dual authentication, but this is more of when you sign in and let's say your internet goes out. And right as you're signing in, your internet goes out, and you're like left at some page that says some kind of error, like HTTP 500 server error, whatever it may be. That's what I mean by that. But I actually do administer Duo as well. Yeah. So I'm that guy who made Duo for everybody. Sorry. But it wasn't me. I mean, well, it was me. I was told to do it. I was the guy who lit the match, you know. Yeah. I mean, I might as well just go to Duo as well. Duo is also a part of our login flow. It doesn't have to be, but it is because it's mandated by the state. I think it's like a federal thing for Florida, for as far as like universities, like we have to have multi-factor authentication. So on everything. So it's literally by the state. It wasn't just like, we were like, you know what, it's a good idea. We knew like there was going to be a lot of issues that came with it, but that's just IT and business butting heads, I guess, if you will. And also on the right, it shows me the amount of HTTP responses that we're getting. So 200, 300, 400, 500. And I mentioned just a second ago, HTTP 500. And I'll show you on the this one right here, the one below, what I mean by the HTTP 500 and some of some of the HTTP statuses that you don't want to see. So this bottom one, this shows 30 days. So this is pretty, I would say, very conservative in terms of the amount of requests that we get, because this is like totally different when registration hits, or when people are like need to sign in, like registration, and a few other ones are like exam times, stuff like that. And you'll see this huge blip right here. That was me. That was me as well. So this is a lot of failed requests because of what I was doing. This was like 6 a.m. in the morning, and I was doing maintenance on the servers. So this is going to happen, but we have load balancing. So you guys would have been able to still sign in. So I wasn't just completely cutting you guys off. This was just some maintenance around 6 a.m. where I had to update and do a security patch. I forgot what that exactly was. It may have just been up in the storage on the server. But yeah, so we have a few servers that are load balance. I took one down. After that was back up, I did the next one, and so on, and rinse and repeat. So that way there's always that uptime, because in IT, uptime is like everything, especially when you have clients like students and faculty.
6 a.m. is a good time for students to not to have a server down.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's probably not a lot of
Like,
servers.
I don't
Not a lot
know.
of students logging in.
So you see up here, I didn't really explain it, but you see this right here, 6 a.m. compared to the amount of activity that's happening during the day. Very, very low right here. So I'm only impacting maybe a few thousand. If you, I'm not sure exactly how many that would be, because that's just how many people are signing in to multiple things at once.
So
So
time it's probably late anyway, so don't worry about
exactly, yeah.
it.
Don't blame me. But yeah, this is also just the 30-day showing you all the HTTP requests. This right here would have probably been a bunch of 500 requests, internal server errors that people got because it was on my side rather than their side, the app side. And this is all in Azure. Showing me beautiful dashboards. So I crossed out a thing or two, I think, on this. Yeah. But this is how ugly an entry of a log looks. This is not even how ugly it can get. I showed you like what is actually somewhat readable. This is like someone logging in. Actually me, not someone. And what kind of is being sent. Very, very small in terms of what's actually being sent. There's a lot more in terms of what's being sent. But let's say I was signing into Canvas, and then there's a few other things on there that doesn't really make sense to go into. But like you'll see right here, it says like education entitlement, common name, telephone number, given name, title, and a few other attributes that we give to Canvas when you sign in. And you can actually see on the attributes that we send freely if they want them. So anyone can literally go here. It's on the help desk website. to figure out and read a little bit more about what I'm talking about, as far as like single sign-on and what I'm talking about in terms of attributes, assertions, and stuff like that. But these are some of the attribute names that could be sent and stuff like that and what they mean. And then I put this in there because I knew someone was going to ask about Duo. This little part right here. This basically says, hey, it's like a flag, or if you took coding or programming, it's called a flag. Hey, is Duo turned on for this application? True. Awesome. Let's make this person authenticate through Duo. So I had to do that every time when you log in. And this is what kind of shows in the logs. Again, it's absolutely not everything that's in there. I just wanted to show a snippet so you can kind of get an idea of what I'm looking at on the daily in terms of logs. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying about building a Splunk dashboard for these logs, so that way I can see them nice and beautiful. I didn't want to show that because there's a lot of things in that and those dashboards that security probably wouldn't want me showing. So I'm gonna hold off on that. And also, some of the things that I've took along the way in terms of this job especially. So I went in this job not knowing a lick of like Linux system administration or administrating Windows servers and even what the heck single sign-on went into that. But when I interviewed, they saw the passion in terms of what I could do and what I have done as far as like my internships and stuff like that. And they saw that and they gave me a few things to go over in my first couple weeks to kind of get me understanding. So they were like, build a Linux server with single sign-on like a test box, and this and like little bits and pieces that I needed to figure out on my own and really just like hammer down to kind of like build where I am now. And that's kind of like been my model of my brain as far as like learning something new, taking bits and pieces and then putting it together. And that's how I come to really be able to basically, I guess in IT, you call it owning the app. Like I've really come into owning single sign-on for FAU. Just through little by little, and working with other people to build my knowledge base. Some learning on the job that I do is some workshops, some conferences. Actually, I did a workshop today with something called Rancher and Kubernetes. If you've ever heard of that, I don't know. But it's basically containerizing. The reason why I'm doing this is because I want to containerize single sign-on for FAU. And what that means is basically at a high level, taking single sign-on and not using like a whole Linux box just for this application, but being able to like kind of section it off and use little smaller amount of resources inside one Linux machine. I don't know if that made sense. Can anybody like kind of, if you need some clarification?
Less resources.
Okay, so basically the point of this is like to efficiency, uptime, as well as using smaller amount of resources. That way I can do multiple instances of the single sign-on application without having more than one computer, if you will, or virtual computer, what we call a virtual machine or VM. And also there's auto scalability with containerizing your application, depending on which orchestration and stuff like that you go with. So that way, if one goes down, it'll automatically post up a new one. So like, let's say I'm on vacation in Mexico, like I was last week, I get an email that SSO is down. I'm like, don't worry about it. Because my my cluster is just gonna be like, oh, pop up a new one. And we're good to go. And then I can go back and check the logs and see why it went down and stuff like that. So I'm working towards that. So it's more uptime for you guys. conferences, and researching constantly is a part of my day-to-day that like you're going to do. Like in IT is like you research constantly, whether it be other people's documentation or docs on Kubernetes, like I was saying, or whatever you're doing for software, consulting coworkers, and also the last thing I'm going to say is that people say that you may not need programming going into your IT career, but I look at it this way. It's like I use it a lot in terms of like concepts of programming. I may not program every day, but like me understanding what's happening and why it's happening is like essential to my daily job. So like if I go in and see what's called a cron job, and something very simple is like a cron job, it's basically a scheduled task that runs on this computer, however interval you want to make it, and there's a script that goes along with it. So called a bash script is like what I'm using. Bash is the language, the script, and you just create a bash script, and like it's important for you to understand concepts of like conditional statements, like if statements, stuff like that. Just minor programming concepts that you should know going forward, and you don't have to know programming, but like just understand that you probably will see it depending on which position you go in the future, and being able to at least know what's going on. That's kind of like the main point of that, is like, so that way you can understand and know what's going on. So that way you're not the one falling behind when something's happening, like an issue's happening, and you got to realize what this script that's running is doing and stuff like that. So yeah. Questions, answers.
So since registration's coming up, so you're the guy, what exactly, what detail about how you get ready for that? Because you know it's at whatever 10 p.m. it's going to get crushed.
Right. So I actually got ready for it. Or I'm already ready for it because we saw what happened a while back. Because we did a little switching around. But when we went to the cloud, the resources that we needed weren't enough. And there was actually some major issues. I forgot where it exactly was. It was a few months ago. And I was like, we need to up these resources in terms of like CPU cores that are on these VM virtual machines and the amount of storage that's on them. Remember how I showed you that picture, this one right here? That actually was for me upping the storage, I remember, because of the issue of the amount of logs that were coming in. So also something that I do is we do something called log rotating. So all the logs are not just like staying there forever. It's probably around 31 days we keep the logs, but we also zip them up so that way we compress them. So that way and it deletes whatever's older, more than 30 days. And the little things like that really add up to a good and efficient registration. So like resources, making sure and knowing the times of when I need to be available and stuff like that. So that can answer your question?
Yeah, I've gone through registration before, and sometimes
yeah. And the thing about that is like I could put a lot, like let's say you have one virtual machine and it has like 20 cores or whatever crazy amount you have on there and RAM and stuff like that. It's still at the end of the day, it's one virtual machine. That's not being load balanced because it's only one. So by having multiple as well and it being load balanced, that way all the load of everyone signing at once is not just on one virtual machine. I have it set up so that way it load balances correctly and distributes the load. So
you said that.
yeah, you remember.
Yeah.
Don't mark my words. Yeah. Any Does anybody have questions on chat, or if you want to open your mic?
Oh, hello. Wanted to know with your job, I see how the process of us logging in is like a big deal. Is your role happening in real time as people are logging in, or is it something on like an after effect of us logging in, like checking?
When you say like it's my job when you're logging in, I'm not sure. Are you saying like, do I have to be like actively like paying attention every time like people log in, or can you elaborate a little bit more? Or
Yes, I mean, is your function at your job happening as we're logging in, like in real time as the logins are happening, or is it after the login happens?
are you are you saying like do I have like live monitoring so I can see when you're logging in?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I could pull up the logs and like tail them and see everything that's coming in, but there's not really a need for it. But yes, I do have that ability. I can see every time you log in, I can go back and see.
Okay,
Every time
thank you.
log in- Yeah, absolutely. Every time you log in a single sign-on, make sure I say that. Not, I can't see everything. It's just when you log into an FAU single sign-on app, if it has that on it.
Okay.
Was another question. Any certifications would you recommend getting? So I'm probably not the best for saying that because I don't have any certifications. But I mean, our main man Shannon could probably, if you would like to jump in on certifications, what you could possibly get. Because I'm still kind of like looking as well.
I mean, the basics are like
Yeah.
the network, and, well, if you're not familiar with it, but then you go into like the work and like your CCNA,
Mhm.
so but it depends. It just depends on what.
Yeah, Anthony would.
What exactly it was.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's the
right
main
now,
thing.
certs are kind of tailored to like specific
yeah.
things, so a security search, a whole suite,
Mhm.
networking search, which probably do, and that would probably fall in. Possibly, I mean, I'm sure you have to know some type of network. 'Cause we
Yeah.
do it.
I do.
So, and then, yeah, I think it just kind of, it depends on where you want to go.
So Anthony, he was saying like some of the more well-known certs, so like A+, Security Plus, Network Plus was like one thing he mentioned pretty heavily on, especially in security. If you're gonna ask something that I would recommend, I guess for like where I am at in my career, because what you would call my position is more of like identity access management. That's what like my real job is. More security based certifications for sure.
Or anything like.
Yeah, infrastructure. Yeah.
Get into that type.
Yeah.
Running a back end,
Yeah.
like a whole company. That's more of a different job.
Mhm. Did that kind of answer your question, Anthony? Awesome.
Tell them that kind of thing that you've done on your own, some of the courses you've taken, like on Udemy.
Oh, yeah. So a lot of the things that I've learned haven't been in the classroom in terms of like programming and networking and kind of that stuff. So when I interned at Office Depot, I did a what's called a hackathon. You may have heard of. Have you guys ever heard of a hackathon? Yeah, literally the one at Office Depot. Yeah. So that's the one I did back in 2019, and I worked with a group of guys that we built this application, software as a service, for people like barbershops. So like it was a very quick and easy way someone could just like pop, 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 and like do like a little touch screen. So that way they could just put they got a fade, whatever your kind of haircut you're getting. And it was just kind of cool to be a part of that and work with someone who really knew how to program and kind of showed you and said, hey, this may be a better way, or really just helped you understand programming concepts when you're actually building an application rather than just doing a homework. Because there are parallels, but they differ a lot. Another thing I did was, or I still do, is I do a lot of online learning with a website called Udemy, or whatever I need to use for, I forgot the name of it, but also YouTube has really, really good tutorials. And also when you're doing these tutorials and stuff like that, try not to just like do exactly what they're doing. Something I did that really, really helped and propel my learning was I would look at a project and they're like, all right, we're going to build this. I would try to build it as best as I could. And then I went back and then I saw how they did it. And that helped me understand the idea of like what I was saying before, how I learned by like piecing things together and then putting it together. And really just making yourself understand nuggets of information, because it can be very, very overwhelming to look at an application like, oh my God, I have nowhere to start. Well, it's like, yeah, and no one knows where to start at first. That's really overwhelming. But once you understand like each layer of what you're going to need to be doing, that's when it really, really comes together. And also just like the hackathon that I was saying, having someone who knows a lot that can teach you and help fill in those little gaps and those little nuggets of information. That way you can really just climb in and build your knowledge base in your brain. So yeah, we'll see.
What do you like most about your job?
It doesn't feel like work. That was a very dull answer. What I like most about it, honestly, is the fact that the research part of it, to be honest with you, the learning aspect, because I'm constantly every day learning, and it's not the same thing every day. It's something new all the time. So like whether it be onboarding a new service for FAU, they come along with their own problems because they have a different technology stack than Canvas, whatever it may be. So kind of seeing different things every day, or a new problem comes up, because I really like problem solving. That's like, I love that. I mean, not when like the world's coming down and SSO is down, like don't look at me then, but I like problem solving. So that and doing all the fun research, I say fun research, but that I love that part of my job. Yeah. And also learning from others. That's huge. Like really investing and learning from your coworkers and seeing what they have to say and hearing their story, where they come from, how they understand technology, can help you understand maybe a future problem and stuff like that. And then Christian, did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then Christian in the chat says, when did you start applying for internships? I mean, that's up to you. Like, you're never gonna feel ready to start applying. So I would say just apply to jobs, and then that you look for, or that like how do I say that? When I was looking at and applying for internships, I was looking for anything that was in the realm of computers and along the lines of what I may want to do. And when I would apply to those, I would look at their job requirements and I would start researching what they want and looked at what I know. And I kind of compared, and then I started researching and filling in those gaps. Like I was saying, those nuggets of information that I may not know, consulting people that I know are aware of these things. So there's no real right answer to when do you start applying for internships. It's whenever you're wanting to take that next step in your career. Like you're never going to feel ready, but ultimately you just got to make that leap and just start applying. And because most places will invest in you. Like I know ModMed has a good program for people in support. like pushing them up towards other parts of the company and stuff like that. And also OIT, getting that first support position so that way you're exposed to different parts of IT. That way you can get a good flavor or feel of what you may want to do. And also not becoming comfortable. I know I'm kind of going off of what your question is, but kind of reminded me of something else. Like not being completely comfortable in your position when you like first get your IT job. Once you get your bearings and you understand what's going on and you've kind of dabbled in certain things, take that extra step and be like, ask your boss or your supervisor, what would it take for me to kind of like dip into what networking is? Is there a way for me to shadow or see what they're doing on a day-to-day and stuff like that? So that kind of went full circle there, but yeah, internships. You just start applying when you're ready to take your next step and research and see what they want and make that happen. Any other questions?
So I know you say you're working with different cloud stuff. I'm not sure if that's like your department stuff or anything.
So I don't touch Intune, but they the systems administrators, the one that are like dedicated to system administration, do use Intune for sure. And also some of the support at FAU OIT uses Intune. I mean, I use a part of Azure Cloud, but not Intune. Yeah.
Much, Zach. We appreciate you coming.
Pop off that.
Just do the, just stop share,
Stop share.
and then I'll stop the recording. Awesome. We go ahead. This.